अब हम मंत्र जाप करेंगे। जय गुरु जी की।
Jai Guruji, Shukrana Guruji, Jai Sangat Ji. Today my mom will be reading pages 59 through 65. There are three satsangs of three different devotees.
First satsang, Guruji saves my marriage. I can never thank Guruji enough. We came to him laden with a business problem, and Guruji immediately gave us his sharan. Everything was okay, but my biggest trial was ahead of me. I have been married for 35 years. I have a son and a daughter, both married, and our house has been blessed with a granddaughter. But it is said no one ever gets everything. My husband's habit could take improvement. He likes to enjoy life but does not want to take on any family responsibilities. And when he drinks, which is what really frightens me, he becomes violent and abusive. My children, thanks to Guruji, are a consolation. I would come to Guruji and ask him for a child for my daughter, but my loving Guruji wanted to get my house cleaned first. Granting the boon of a child was no problem. One night I had gone home after taking Guruji's leave. My husband wasn't in, but I wasn't worried. He played golf and came home late, at least 4 days in a week. Though in his early 60s, he had always liked to drink and eat with his friends. I alternated between being angry and loving, since I could never oppose him, for then he would start using his hands. I was very afraid of him. Usually, when he entered the house at night, I would pretend to be asleep to avoid an ugly scene. That night I had just turned off the bedside lamp when I seemed to hear dear Guruji's voice. He said, "Find out where your man is." I turned on the light and called my husband on his mobile. Due to Guruji's grace, the mobile was on and I could hear him talking with a woman. I could hear everything. My husband was with his mistress. I was stunned. Of course, I knew that he used to go to girls when he was young. When I voiced my suspicion, he would point out that he daren't take such a risk as AIDS was prevalent. Since my husband had always been conscious of his health and spoke with such confidence, I had believed him. So this affair was a big shock for me. But I keep my wits about me and, and summoned my daughter-in-law and let her listen to the conversation, for I knew I would need to confront my husband with proof, else he could just prevail over me with violence. My son was out of Delhi. Guruji, I am sorry, but that day when he came back home, I hit him and turned him out. He was so drunk that he did not know what was happening. He was kept out of the house for 10 days and came back saying many times that he was sorry. He is a man with a big ego. He never used to say sorry. 2 months after that incident, there was a sea change in my husband. He turned into a good man after making me suffer for 35 years. Today, the same man loves me a lot. He loves the children and his granddaughter. Nowadays, if he drinks a lot, he cries. He confesses that he is not a good man and has given me a lot of pain. With Guruji's grace, I have forgotten everything, and there is deep love between me and my husband, as if we have just been newly married. May Guruji bless all the women of the world who suffer so much. I would like to tell everyone to come to Guruji's feet and be happy. He is God. I love my Guruji very much. I'm going to read the second satsang. He lit a candle in the darkness of my night. Certain occurrences are beyond the realm of human understanding, and we can only embrace such experiences with the conviction that divine intervention has prevailed. I shall be eternally grateful to Guruji, who gave me a new lease of life. With the benefit of hindsight, I understand why, although at that time the reasons were unclear to me. Mystery shrouded the core of my being as my suffering was intense. Every cell and nerve of mine was filled with agony on the physical and psychological levels. Even though Guruji had entered my life as a beacon of light, I was unable to see beyond my own darkness and despair. Born and raised in Manchester, UK, I suffered from congenital asthma and eczema, as well as a hole in the heart. My childhood was traumatic for my parents and very tiring and trying for me. However, on account of strong health karma, my spirit had become indomitable as I had to endure much more than my contemporaries. I had learned to rise above the trivialities at a tender age due to my tribulations. I had reservations about my life exceeding 10 years. Good fortune prevailed. My parents, on the other hand, lived with uncertainty, as the heart specialist had painted a grim picture for me. I was a healthy and happy teenager enjoying all the joys that life offered. At 22, I tied the knot and migrated to Delhi. However, as fate had it, a cloud of torment again descended upon my life. As my asthma choked me with every changing season, I was hospitalized each time and given steroid injections. I felt detected and rejected, as despite my best efforts to evade and avoid asthma attacks, I was still stuck with the worst kind. My most life-threatening one struck me in 1997, and that is when I resigned to it completely. I recall praying in my heart that this be the final one, as I could no longer endure the affliction. During that ill-fated time, I had developed a nasty skin condition that involved my entire body. A biopsy confirmed I had skin cancer. I kept my plight to myself, as I was determined not to shock my family. It was earth-shattering news, and I had decidedly reached the end of the road, as my strength to go on had diminished. However, in the darkness of my night, Guruji, by divine grace, lit a candle. Each time I revisit the day, I glimpsed him. I can distinctly recollect my feelings. As good fortune had it, Guruji sat alone in his room that day when my friend, who had insisted on my paying him a visit, accompanied me to him. His merry presence overwhelmed me. I had felt like a lost child all my life, who had finally found the comfort and protection of a mother. I had been instantly taken under his wing. I had discovered true love like never before. It was pure and unconditional. I felt at home as he embraced me with his infinite love and asked me to attend his congregation every evening. Come rain or shine, I would go to Guruji every evening and sit amongst hundreds of other devotees. At that time, I was undergoing immense physical pain as my skin was oozing with pus and blood. In addition, I was psychologically distressed, and this made me increasingly uncomfortable around people. As time elapsed, Guruji bestowed upon me a blessing that began to heal me internally. I began to accept my condition, and instead of resisting and fighting it with an overkill of bitterness and animosity, I made people I made peace with it. I accepted the inevitability of my illness, and since I grew to be at ease with it and with my circumstances, I went with the flow without accepting to be healed. I didn't believe that healing was a possibility. Merely being with Guruji and imbibing his energy elevated my spirits, and I expected no more. I was finally at peace as I immersed myself more and more in his gracious presence. I felt a spiritual awakening. I simply loved being with him as he rendered upon me love that I never knew before. His love was pure and unconditional, and the kind that could not be substituted. I gravitated towards him very naturally and effortlessly every single evening without fail. On the blessed day, he summoned me to the front, where he sat and quite openly announced in Punjabi, which I must confess was Greek to me, that he had tried and tested and squeezed me like a lemon, and that now he would heal me. I must not fail to add how true his words were, as he had left no stone unturned in testing my endurance to see if I was worthy of his love. I returned home that evening with hope and joy blossoming in my heart. All those months that my skin was inflamed, I would avoid my reflection as I daunted by it. The mirror was a painful sight. The turning point arrived when Guruji endowed me with his eternal blessing and advised me to muster the courage to look in the mirror. Courage is what it took, as the reflection had changed by only a fraction. However, within a few weeks, I saw a new me standing in the mirror, a stranger to myself. I was overawed by Guruji. Without a shadow of doubt, I was convinced of his sublime healing powers, and my love for him grew ever stronger, and my faith even more formidable. Changing seasons came and went, but did not trigger off any asthma attacks. In fact, I breathed Delhi's polluted air as normally as anyone I knew without being choked by it. Guruji made me a new lease of life and told me that I would not have survived if it had not healed me. His words corresponded with an astrologer's whom I had met much earlier that year. It is a challenge for me to give expression to the transformation that took place, but the least I can say is that he healed me not only physically but also enriched me spiritually. After the longest time, I began to feel comfortable in my own skin literally. However, Guruji's tests are unending, and As nature has it, we become selfishly distant once we are granted our prayers. Our one particular incident demonstrates how Guruji never ceases to love his disciplines. He had told me to light a candle before his photograph every day. One day after lighting, half a box of matches, the candle had still not lit. Much to my dismay, in a fit of fury, I went to the bathroom, came out, and there was a lit candle. I was startled. That very evening, as a mark of respect, I especially visited Guruji, even though it was not my visiting day. As I bowed to touch his feet, he whispered softly in his usual gracious voice. So the candle lit, did it not? I knew then that it was I who had distanced myself from Guruji, and he, on the contrary, always remained connected. In a word, I would like to conclude my humbly experiencing my heartfelt gratitude to him, and live every moment feeling indebted to his grace. Third satsang, a messenger of God. I was distressed and shattered when my college going son fell in a depression for no apparent reason. Although we took professional help, my thoughts turned to Guruji, about whom I had heard from my daughter. The family of a friend of my daughter's used to go to him. The friend's mother agreed to introduce us to Guruji. She assured me that my son would not lose college time. Guruji would take care of everything. I just wanted my son to be well. His losing a year was not a priority. Guruji was extremely kind during my first meeting with him. Once he assured me that things would be okay, I relaxed. With Guruji's blessings, my son made slow but steady improvement. Against the doctor's advice, my son appeared for half his exams. The college allowed him to appear for the rest after a month, so he obtained good marks. But the grace of God and Guruji, my son recovered within a month. He happily settled down in his hostel and did well in his studies. His depression seems like a bad dream. After meeting Guruji, I feel our family has been blessed and we are secure under his protection. I shall always feel grateful to Guruji for his kind blessings. He is truly a messenger of God. Jai Guruji, Shukrana Guruji, Jai Sangat Ji, Shukrana Sangat Ji.